Shane Walker. Oh, I'm sorry, Suzette.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzette Lopez, and I'm the mother of 2 kids in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I recently met with Dr. Feldman about the upcoming assessments, and he kindly provided me with a copy of last month's meeting. After reviewing it, and while I'm here to express my concerns of the upcoming assessments, I also realize that this board shares in many of my concerns. I'm here to offer my support and to ask this board what parents can do to help push back against the current testing situation. Parents are ready to work with our school board in order to help stop this nightmare condition. My long-term concerns go farther than what Superintendent Carvalho mentioned, but the main issues of the current assessment and the suspension of school grades is a point of great agreement, and I think it's imperative that we work together to help change the short-term situation. I thank this school board for implementing the minimal required tests as per Florida law. Parents, though, believe that there are way too many tests still, and we are losing precious instructional time in lieu of practicing for the test and actual teaching time. These high-stake tests also currently carry way too much weight on too many factors. We have given way too much power to these testing companies. They are businesses, and they're in the business of making money off the failure of our children. AIR, the company that we have chosen, not only developed our Florida state assessment test, but also received $4 million to develop VAM. They have influence in more than just the testing. They have a lot of areas, and that's a point of real concern for me. Superintendent Carvalho stated that the test should inform, support, and improve instruction. I also believe this. I also believe that it should provide guidance to parents and teachers to understand areas of strength and weakness. When you talk about validity and reliability, why should we trust any exam when parents have no gauge to how their children are really performing? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What data is being collected? Why can't teachers easily receive the test and be afforded the opportunity to review the test with the children to understand the mistakes made? It's difficult to extract any useful information from the test once the score inquiry is made, because we are never afforded the opportunity to see a graded test. Funding is a primary issue. Our funding priorities are more focused on testing infrastructure, more so than on the actual feedback provided to students and teachers. Major problems in all this has frankly been transparency. There is a messaging problem because there's a transparency issue. At all levels, at every stage, from the moment we adopted Common Core to assessments to VAM, just the complete package. The message that I heard was that Florida was going to move forward with plans regardless of parent school district concerns. The timelines for implementation of technology infrastructure requirements were set in Race to Top grants and in the No Child Left Behind waiver applications, regardless of district preparedness and long-term funding considerations. From what I'm hearing, the concerns right now stem from the continued emphasis on school grades, even though the schools would not receive any sanctions or penalties as a result of the grades issued in 2015, as stipulated in SB 1642. So what about the kids and the teachers? What would be their reprieve? In Utah, they actually in April passed the law that would allow parents the opportunity to opt out without repercussions to students and teachers. This was done after their version of their AIR test came out. They did this in April. And it actually had a pretty good, it wasn't a close call, it was a pretty good margin to pass it. I spoke with Mrs. Fields, the Administrative Director of Assessments in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, and she explained the impact of the scores on students. She assured me that the scores would not have punitive effects on students for the first year of the test, similar to what happened to the transition from FCAT 1 to 2. So why then was that protection not added into the law?
Could you kind of, I think, 35 seconds over.
Okay, I'm done.
Very good.
Florida does not include any protections for most of the students and teachers. In fact, the law provides bonus funding for those who implement performance pay. As a parent that already had severe concerns about Common Core, the issue of the assessment just compounds my concerns. Parents are prepared to step up and to help, so I ask again, what can parents do to help? Thank you.
And for the record, 45 seconds, which I have no problem doing, because I think your message, if I listen very well, was what can parents do to help the school, the board, the superintendent get a message across to the bigger audience. And so I certainly appreciate some of your comments, and also the data you brought up and how you did it. And I hope that you're able to meet with different PTAs and share the concern of how do parents get involved and support, and maybe even at some point ask the superintendent what are his suggestions or staff suggestions on how parents can assist what he's trying to do on behalf of all of us, because I know that that's an important piece. So thank you very much, Ms. Lopez. Comment over here to my left.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
You want to go first?
Yes. And also in your comments, I really appreciate you looking at Utah and citing just what Utah is suggesting as we try to approach this as that being a trial area. So thank you for your research and your support in this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. First, I want to thank you for coming and talking to us about your concerns. I think you would be hard-pressed to find a school board member throughout the entire state of Florida, with a few exceptions of a few people that probably have been appointed, that don't agree with you. The problem here is that we have no control over it. This is a Tallahassee deal. It's a Tallahassee mandate that we have no choice, as you know, but to implement. I think that a lot of parents are confused because with the sunsetting of the FCAT, they think that their problems are over, and they don't understand that this last legislative session, without needing to, they approved a 6-year contract for $220 million for a test that's being made in Utah. What can parents do about it? I think that parents have a fantastic opportunity in the next 4 months to call their state representatives and their state senators and the governor's office and the candidates that are running for these positions and tell them that they do not agree with the decisions that are being made in Tallahassee. I mean, we're preaching to the choir here. We all agree. We've got to Tallahassee. We fought the good fight. We asked for more time. We asked to field test the exam. We begged them to please slow down this process. No one is against accountability. We don't have a problem with accountability. We have a problem with rushing something that we know is going to have problems and then holding us accountable for their created emergency. And I think that we're going to see a little bit of that. I think that a lot of people in Tallahassee have amnesia. They don't remember how long it took to create the FCAT. They don't know how many times the FCAT was wrong. They don't remember how we had to send the test back and all the issues that we've had. And they need to be cognizant of that when the problems arise with this new testing paradigm, that we are not the ones that are responsible. They are the ones that are responsible because they created this mess. So I would recommend to you and to other parents that are concerned about this to focus in on all the representatives that have elections and tell them how you feel, to focus in on the statewide elections, because we said our PTA is fantastic and they go up with this, but they don't listen to the PTA. This is an insider baseball thing. And what happens is they don't think that the average citizen cares. And they go out and they say that they're pro-education and they don't want to talk about the decisions that they've made in Tallahassee. They point to the school board and they say, well, go down there and tell them what your problems are, without informing people that all we do is fulfill the mandates that they impose upon us. And we have very little flexibility in that. So I would ask you to reach out to your local representatives and tell them that you're concerned with this. And maybe if enough people do that, we can have a better conversation in Tallahassee when we go up there next session. Thank you.
Well said, Mr. Regalado. Mr. Corbella.
Thank you, Dr. Feldman. I just want to reemphasize that because that's important. We all have concerns about the test that's going to be implemented because we don't know what it's going to look like yet. I think there's broad consensus on this board for accountability, but what that accountability looks like is what is uncertain. So what Ms. Regalado said is exactly right. The only place to find solutions for this is in Tallahassee. It's wonderful that you come and you share with us and with the public, but Tallahassee has the remedy for this situation. No one here, no one at County Hall, no one in Washington, D.C. Has any say over this. It's all our state legislators and the Department of Education and the governor's office. So that's where the letters, the calls, the emails should be directed to.
They're getting them, but they're not listening.
Mr. Corbella, thank you. Anyone else? Superintendent, any comments?
Through the chair, I've been very clear and succinct about my position regarding these matters. They were the topic of conversation Sunday morning on Channel 10 on Michael Putney and Glenna Millenberg. They will be the topic of conversation coming very soon during the Jim DeFeedy Show. They have been well covered by the Miami Herald, El Nuevo Herald, as well as other state publications. My testimony before state legislators and my position regarding these issues before the state board have been well documented. And I am steadfast in my determination to not allow this issue to go away. At a time when we are experiencing heightened accountability standards, a shift from the legacy standards over to the Florida standards, with an accountability assessment that nobody has seen, whose sampling of questions are being field tested in Utah, and I keep saying no doubt because of the remarkable similarities of the demographic profile of Utah students to Florida's, particularly Miami-Dade. Simply said, the state is moving, has gone too far, too fast, without entertaining the consequences that will be suffered by our kids, our teachers, and our leaders. And we do not have to be rocket scientists to anticipate what some of those results will be. We simply need to look north and examine what happened in New York City, and most recently in Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., that district that entity did have the wisdom, and again, they act as a state, District of Columbia, of basically slowing down the process, recognizing the challenges that New York had just faced. And the challenges for me, and I concur absolutely with what has been said thus far, particularly the point that at this point, recognizing that the assessment does not exist yet, but student results, achievement results over an untested assessment that lacks the examination of validity and reliability will be used to drive school grades, which I oppose at this point. We had asked for a 2 to 3 year transitional period. We thought that was fair. I certainly supported a 2-year. There were some superintendents in the state that actually wanted a 3-year transitional period. The state agreed to 1-year transitional period, but didn't go far enough. By suspending the accountability consequences, the school grades are still going to come out, and the technical adjustment that we know will be seen. And by technical adjustment, that's a nice way of saying the precipitous fall of performance through that single letter grade will be too much for people across the state to understand. We will see once again what happened last year and to a lesser extent this year, which is teachers taught better, more effectively, students learned better at higher levels, but at the end of the day, the school performance in terms of letter grade still fell because the watermark rose too fast on them, because the standards were moved too fast, and the inclusion of additional elements into the accountability system, such as social studies or science, and of course exams into middle school, or new scale scores or cut scores in a grading scale. So anytime that you change so many variables, anytime that you move so many moving parts simultaneously, you can almost predict that the result will not be a good result. So I appreciate you coming out here today and echo what we have been saying for a long time. You express it in a very coherent and logical, sequential, procedural way. And I appreciate the fact that you recognize that on this matter, we're speaking in unison. We fully agree. I am the eternal hopeful. So I have not given up. And I think as we get closer and closer to D-Day, to that day where the assessment is to be given to the students, recognizing that it is an online assessment, the state's readiness from a technology perspective may not be what would be necessary. As we come closer and closer to that day, the full realization that students are going to be taking an assessment that was never field tested in the state of Florida, but that assessment will produce results that will be incorporated into teachers' evaluations, leaders' evaluations, school performance grade for the school recognition funding for teachers in those schools. Recognizing all those implications, I do believe that there will be a second look given to this issue, So thank you once again for, in an eloquent and intelligent way, putting this issue back on stage. I haven't left it alone. I keep
Thank
talking
you.
about it, and I appreciate, at least through social media, the echo that the messaging out of Miami-Dade is having across the state. Once again, we're not taking this laying down. We value our kids and teachers too much to do so. So I take a great deal of pride in the position that this board continues to maintain, and equal pride in the voice of the community that shows up and says, you know what, keep at it, because this is the right fight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent. So I think you heard from a lot of the folks, and they even gave you some more ideas, maybe, as to the next step for all the great things that you have in there, plus additional ammunition that the superintendent just did. So this has been a very valuable conversation, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I say one other thing?
Sure.
That last night, because I talked to 2 different school board members in Utah, actively have been talking for close to 6 months now, because I really want to understand what they're going through, what they've been, and I spoke with both of them last night. And when she brought forth the law and the issue of the law, the first thing that I did was I tweeted it to 2 representatives, and they favored it. So that was a good first step. I guess what we're looking for is really some key help, and like very specific to how, it's not just call because I call, but it is what it is. But just more specific, like specifically where could we target, or where could we be, in unison? If you guys are going to work to put forth another law that might help to readjust the current law, then that's a point of understanding that we would need to know, because that's where, I'm a parent. I don't teach. I'm just a parent, but I read a lot, and I read the laws. I was just reading the SB 4 again, because I was like, I wanted to understand it. So it's to kind of understand where exactly to target it, because when it's too much of a blanket statement, just I want to fix the assessment problem, and nothing gets done. It has to be very targeted, very specific, in order for them to react appropriately and get back some feedback that it's worth something.
Okay. Great. Right there. This is
Great.
Regalado.
That's fantastic. I would tell you, look, a lot of people don't understand how the process in Tallahassee works. There's very few laws in Tallahassee that are drafted from scratch. There isn't a legal department. There's a drafting department, and they just put everything in nice little paragraphs and put little numbers on it. It's not rocket science. Most of the bills that our representatives bring to Tallahassee, they've copied from other states, and this could be no different. If you feel strongly about the Utah bill, get a copy of it. Send it to the representatives, that you were able to contact. Find a representative that'll sponsor it. Find a senator that'll sponsor it, and do it. I mean, this again, someone has to call them out on it. I mean, obviously Iraida's fantastic. We go through all the bills. We decide what we're going to support and what we're not going to support. What's going to get tweaked and what we don't think needs tweaking. The process starts in the next few weeks. Committees start soon. They're up there now dealing with the map mess. But, after they'll deal with their campaigns. Once they get reelected in November, committees start and we're off and running. So I would tell you to use this time wisely. They will not be shocked by getting an email with a bill from Utah and saying, hey, do this in Florida, because we do it all the time. In fact, I think most of the laws that we have here come from Texas, Utah, and Arizona. I don't know why those 3 states, but it's fascinating that they picked those 3. So this is not anything new. But I think that you should start getting moving on that, and obviously email us too. I think we all want solutions. We're all sick of the talk. We agree with you. And I think if you reach out to other school boards in the state of Florida, I mean, that's also helpful too. Just try to make it something that's palatable and something that hopefully will be bipartisan, so that it can get done.
Ms. Lopez, obviously you were answering and got extra time because you were answering questions. And no, just so people understand. You were in a conversation, we queried you, and then you ended up replying. So just so people understand why you were still here and why we're talking and why we're having the conversation, I think it's important for transparency reasons. It certainly was because, we had asked you questions and it was relevant to answering us. So thank you and continue the great work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next person, Jane Walker.